It is George Couros, and this is a unique, maybe a little special episode of the Innovators Mindset podcast. Talladega County Schools in Alabama was reading my book, co-authored with Allison Apsey, titled "What Makes a Great Principal." And not only did Allison and I write this book together, we got some amazing contributors. It was former principals, current principals, and teachers. And I think that's one of the things that really mattered to me, was actually hearing what makes a great principal from the viewpoint of a teacher, because we often say, like, we really need to focus on the people we serve, but let's hear from them. Let's actually hear their insights on what they actually need in from leadership and how they can be best supported. So the reason this is a little unique, they actually are doing a book study, and they asked me to answer some questions. So I popped onto a Zoom, and instead of, that just being kind of in the background, I wanted to share this with you all. So you might not hear the questions perfectly, but my responses are right into the mic. So hopefully this will help you in some way. I wanted to try something a little bit different. You can't really have a podcast called The Innovators Mindset without trying different things. And although it might not be perfect, I think there's some really good insights. Well, hopefully they're mine, so I shouldn't really say they're good. You can decide that, whether, if you find them valuable or not. But we had a really great conversation. So welcome to this special edition of the Innovators Mindset podcast.
Back on task. So how should principals thoughtfully align their strategic plan and leadership, our inner circle or inner sanctum of trusted leaders, to ensure that when we're gone, what we leave is not just improved outcomes, but it's a sustainable culture that's rooted in that growth that we talk about in your book?
Oh, this is a tough one for me because you might not like my answer. So that's where I'm going to have an issue with it. So this is something that is, we say this in leadership, and one of the things I pride myself on is being honest. And so you might not like this answer, that we have this notion that you build a culture, and then if you're to leave it, it is actually, it will sustain without you. But the reality of it is, it depends on the leader who comes in after you. Because if someone comes in there with a totally different vision, totally different idea of what they want to do, they can take it apart. And I know teachers don't like listening to principals, right? Can we all agree on that? Is that a fair statement? And as I was as a teacher, it's hard to listen to your bosses, but none of them want to get in trouble. So when you have a new leader, coming in and they have a totally different vision, they have a totally different way of that they're going to go, teachers still don't want to get in trouble. So they'll follow that because they don't want to get in trouble. So I think the best thing is kind of look at, as you're building that team, it is what's actually being built outside of you as well. So what's being built in the district. And I know that's something that's a little bit out of your control. Who is coming in there? What are some of the things that you're leaving there? The thing that's really important to me is when we're training or working with possible administrators that are coming in, because that is a lot of people come in there and they have a notion of where they want to go. And I talk a little bit about this in the book. I'm always asked this question: if you're new to a building, what's the first thing you would change? My answer is always the same: nothing. It is absolutely nothing. The first thing you should be doing is looking at the staff, looking at the community, understand what their strengths are, figure out what they're doing well already, and build upon that. Because if you go into a place where you feel, where everyone feels you're trying to fix them, they'll fight you the entire time. But if they know they value what has already been done and what they're good at already, I think that's part of that process. The best thing you can do, and you kind of mentioned it as well, is you want some of the impact of your work to continue on after you're gone. So it is really developing leaders. It's really developing, and not when I say leaders, I'm not talking APs, curriculum people. I'm talking people with influence on your staff. So who are the teachers that have influence with other teachers? Who are the support staff that has influence with other support staff, and really developing them. You don't want to just have it as like a admin circle, more of a leadership circle, the people who have influence. So you might not like that answer, but I'm trying to be honest with you, because we want our legacies and the work that we do to continue on, but somebody can tear it down. What we really try to focus on is we don't want leaders going in immediately and changing everything, because it's kind of disregarding all the good stuff that's already there. What did you think of that answer? Do you hate that answer? You can tell me the truth.
You did a great job because I think that we're in line in our thought that we should be working ourselves out of a job. You're constantly developing people that are
Yep.
going to be you when you walk away.
Yeah, and I love that you said that, because if you are that good that you work yourself out of a job, you'll always have a job because someone else will want you. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if there's like no one's ever like, you did such a good job that we don't even need you anymore, so good luck in your retirement. Like that doesn't happen. People will look for you to go somewhere else to build that as well. So the people who work themselves out of jobs always have jobs.
Absolutely.
Yep.
A plus.
I'm going to go next.
Hey, how you
So
doing
my-
today? How are you?
I'm Ira Edwards. I'm the principal at Mumford Elementary. How are you?
I am wonderful. I'm giddy. It makes me feel really nice that you're all reading my book. So with Allison too, and a great group of people writing it.
So we've really enjoyed the whole study. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm kind of piggybacking off what you and Anna have talked about, because my question is, what is the most important practice a principal can put in place to sustain the leadership principle once that they leave? Like, I may be retiring, so
Right.
what can I,
I think to me, and I don't know if this was mentioned to you. I do have a brand new. I know I'm not pitching it to you, but I'm a little bit pitching to you. I have a new book it's called Forward Together, and it's called Forward Together: Moving School. Tell me if this is not a relevant topic. Moving schools from conflict to community in contentious times, right? So it's a pretty relevant. A lot of it's been doing very well, but that's the first thing I thought of is how is when you leave that it's not dependent upon a person, but it's really about a community. You're really focusing on ownership over buy-in. So when you're talking about buy-in, the context of that is I know this is a horrible way to say it. You're manipulating people to do what you want them to do. That's what buy-in actually is. Ownership is they have their fingerprints over the solutions that are created for that community, that they have input. So one of the things I talked about in What Makes a Group Principal, and I actually talked about Forward Together, is that we really develop staff to build their professional learning plans, actually measure them, and they wanted them to succeed because they built them. And I think that as a staff, you want to create it where people have ownership. The best principal, who I really is all over that book, and I talk about Kelly Wilkins quite a bit. One of the things that she was so masterful at is she was so good to me as a teacher, and she asked me things that no other principal asked my input on ever. And there were times I would be working like at 7, 8 p.m. at the school doing stuff, and I would just stop. I'm like, how is she getting me to do this? Like, why am I excited to be here? It is so weird because I would have been grumbling for any other principal, because I felt that even as a teacher, that my work impacted the entirety of the school, not just my classroom. And so I think that is the most important thing you develop, is really building a culture where ownership is crucial. And it might not be exactly achieving the things that you want to achieve, but those things are more likely to be achieved when you have so many people's fingerprints on the creation of them. That's what I would focus on. So, and that's obviously building relationships, how you build rapport with people, but genuinely asking them questions and working on their input and saying, like, we had one of my assistant principal who was a teacher when I was an AP. She had such influence, and that's why I think of her first when I think of like teachers who had influence. She didn't necessarily always get along with me as an assistant principal, but I knew everyone respected her. So we would often go to her and say, like, hey, what do you think of this plan? What do you think of this? And she said, I don't like it. I'm like, well, tell me why. Well, because of this and this and this. So I'm like, okay, give me a week. Just give me a week. So then a week, I would take her feedback and would put it all over the plan. I'm like, what do you think now? She's like, I love it. And why does she love it? Because she saw that she helped build it, and she saw her input of the process. And then it was so much easier for those things to take fruition on the staff, because she had such influence that, like, hey, if Cheryl says it, then we're good, right? But of course she loved it because she helped create it. But we would ask her. So you're not asking for input. This is, and you might not agree with me on this. I never ask for input on something I'm not willing to consider. Like, I don't ask for I'm not asking for your time unless I'm willing to change my direction. Right. So like, I even used to say to my staff, hey, listen, I will tell you that there are some things you have no say on, and they're from central office and they're already decided. And I'm not going to pretend that whatever you say is going to change in the direction. Sometimes we just got to do stuff that we got to do. And that's how it is. If we want to argue about it and complain about it, we can, but nothing's going to change because I have no say. So like they knew if I brought it up that it was open to feedback. And sometimes I would tell them, hey, this is what's happening. I have no say. This is what it is. So if you want to talk about it, we can, but nothing's going to change. And they just, I think people appreciate it because no one wants their time wasted. Right?
Thank you so much.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for the question. Is everyone this polite? Is everyone this nice? I love it. I love it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Nikki Bryan. I'm from Childersburg Elementary, principal there.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Hey, Giovanna, thanks for standing up because there's a little silence there. Do you know what you get? You get one of these. There you go. There you go. I got buttons. Sorry.
Thank you, Bill. You were to think about your lasting fingerprint on public education. What do you feel like it would be?
For me personally?
Yes, for you personally.
Oh, like actually for George personally? Is that are you asking me this?
That's what I'm asking.
I go back to Kelly. Kelly was such a good principal, and she was just an incredible, and I still talk to her all the time, and I just absolutely loved her. She changed my life, let alone the way I looked at school and leadership. The thing with Kelly that was really amazing was she developed people to really have an impact in so many different places. So if you came to her school, you wanted to go into leadership, you wanted to be a curriculum director, whatever, basically within 2 to 3 years, if not less, you're going to go in that role. Now, if you wanted to go to her school and be the best teacher ever, that would happen also. This also being said, and I'm being totally open with y'all, if you were no good, you were gone. Like she made sure, like, she wanted everyone to have a positive impact. So like if teaching wasn't for you, and she wasn't mean or like ruthless or anything like that, but I think she was honest, like what's the Brene Brown, like clear as kind, or that statement too, right? So sometimes she's like, I don't think this is for you. So everyone that came there went off, and I, like, within a few years of working with her, I was on a leadership team that had all these former teachers that were basically worked with Kelly. And it was funny, I remember she was the assistant superintendent when I was a principal, and there was some people bugging her. And they're like, yeah, you can't keep staff for very long. Like, they all seem to leave, and they're almost making fun of her. And she said, I'd rather have someone awesome for 2 years than someone terrible for 10. I was like, that's just such a good statement. And so why I talk to you about when I share that in response to your question, my hope is that there's so many people that go out and do great work because of my influence, because I saw something in them that they might not have seen, push them. And I've been doing podcasts for a long time. A lot of times when I say, like, I ask the question, like, tell me about a principal who had an impact on you, or it's always that they saw something in me that I didn't see myself. And I think that's what I really try to do. And I've always said that if I can have an impact on 1/10 of the people that Kelly had an impact on, I would have a very successful career. So my hope is that other people go on to do great things because, not because I made them go do it, but I helped them see something that was already there. That's what I hope my impact is. How's that for an answer? Maybe, do I get a cell phone? Get one of those? Can I tell you a story about fingerprints though? And I think I did write in the book as the first thing I thought of when you said this. Did you read the part about the principal pictures in the school? Did you read that? So in the school that I became a principal at, they had principal portraits up, right? So you walked in, it's like all the old principals. And no one ever looked at those pictures and go like, "Huh, that's a principal 1972. That's amazing." Like nobody cared. Like it was just so, I don't know. It was a little narcissistic for my liking. So I actually talked my staff out of those pictures. We took them all down. And what did we put up instead? We put pictures of kids in the building that were there right now. And every 2 months, so we just get pictures of Walmart. We bought a frame from IKEA. And we would swap pictures. So you'd walk in immediately, you would see kids that were in the building right now doing stuff that was in the school. And I'll tell you, the change in that first entrance when you walked in was amazing. So when I think of fingerprints, I was principal there, I think 15 years ago. There's no picture of me. Probably no staff is there that was there when I was there. Do you know what my fingerprints are? Those pictures are still up of those kids, right? And not of the kids that when I was there, the kids that are in the building right now. That's my fingerprints. That's what I'm proud of, is that I don't really think anyone knows I was there, but I know that I said something about those pictures, and they would have probably just continued on with the tradition. I'd rather see kids than principals. No offense to any of you. I apologize for that. But it is something I'm very proud of. How we doing, everyone? We're just going to look. We're going to just stare at each other.
All right, my name is Brooke Brewer. I'm at Wood Elementary. I'm a first-year principal.
How's that going? How you doing? How's that going so far?
Surviving.
I bet you're doing probably way better than what you think. So, good for you.
I hope so. Thinking back on your first year as a principal, what advice would you give yourself?
The advice I give myself is actually what I did, and I think I tell people this all the time. I was pretty young when I was a principal. I was the youngest principal ever in the school district. So it was already, there's, which when they say that, it's like, so people are judging you. So I was actually, weirdly enough, I was the youngest person on staff as the principal. And my advice is be around the students as much as possible and really build rapport, because, and I'm not saying this is you, but this is definitely me. There's a lot of stuff I had to learn. There's a lot of stuff I had to figure out as a principal, but that basically gave me credibility with the staff. They're like, listen, this guy's young. He probably doesn't know much. At least he likes kids. Like that's a thing that I think kind of saved me a little bit that they saw every recess. I was talking to students. I'd be out there all the time. I was out there in the morning when they came in. I was out there saying goodbye when they left. And so that gave me, people that maybe had some questions, which I think were fair because you're still learning a lot of things, said, his heart is in the right place. So, because I cannot teach someone to like kids. I cannot. I can teach you how to be a principal, but I can't teach you how to like kids. So I think if people know that you're there for the same reason they are, that they'll give you a lot more grace. And, you're allowed to do that, which is probably the same, right? You probably have teachers. A principal said this to me. His name is David Pesic, and I've never met someone who is so universally beloved. He said this to me, that a teacher who's good with relationships, who's bad with curriculum, will last a lot longer than one who's good with curriculum and bad with relationships. And that's true also with principals. Like, if you build that rapport with your community, with your students, with your staff, they'll give you grace. But if you're just coming in there and you don't build that, the grace goes. And I think that's where I would start my first year. And I'm sure you're doing that already, to be honest. I could tell by your demeanor in about 2 seconds. Since you felt bad for me because no one was talking to me, and you're like, oh, poor guy. Where's Suzanne? Is Suzanne here? Where is she?
Yes. Hey.
Hey, how are you doing? Good to see you. Can I just say to Suzanne, whenever I talk to her, she has such a pride in your school district. So just so you know, she loves you all. She's very proud of you. So
We love her.
you should. She loves you.
Hey, I'm Jana Strickland, Special Education Coordinator.
How you
So
doing?
I feel like I'm in between your two books that you were referencing today, The Pillars and Moving Forward. So as Ms. Harris has taken us through our study, some of the things that have stood out to me that I've actually started working with Dr. Morgan to implement in our special education department is with our district staff team, the team that works just for special education to support our schools. And we're working towards maximizing our resources, capitalizing on the strengths, creating ownership.
Yep.
But I feel like maybe I need to read the book moving forward or have some reflection there. So what would be your gold nugget? Because I feel like we're starting to reach that point where that strengths-based model requires a lot of collaboration. And here we are entering challenges. How do we share that role and defining the role? Because even I don't know how to I need them to define that role somewhat. So I would just love it.
Sorry, I missed that last part. What role are you talking about? The new, can you explain that part?
So we're trying to capitalize on their strengths in order to maximize our team.
Yep.
And that is requiring more shared approach.
Yep.
But then it's who does what. There's that conflict in the challenge.
Yep.
And sometimes, I mean, my personality is like, just figure it out. Like I gave you that. But so I do,
Yep.
I'm thinking and reflecting on how do we move forward with this model, because we're hitting the challenges of a team and serving a lot of needs. So
yeah, and like there's two things that like I think about that in that process. Sometimes, and this is when you delegate something, you have to be very comfortable with not stepping in. So you can't like delegate something and then micromanage. You have to you have to be comfortable. It's not going to be done the way you want it to be done. Does that make sense? Because there's some times where I'm not comfortable delegating and it was someone else's job. I'm like, hey, I'm going to do this because I know I'm going to just be just get up in your stuff if I don't like it. So I'm just going to take it over. And that's just, and I'm not trying to be a jerk. This is something I want to do and it's okay. So I wouldn't even pretend that they'd have to spend that work with them. But I think it is them to kind of figure out that process. But I think it's one of the things that we used to do is called the cadence of accountability. So whenever you have a meeting with each other, like it's, again, I'm maybe a little bit too honest. We like to talk in education. We have a lot of meetings. It's like meeting after meeting and it's like so many meetings and it's just like, we don't get anything done. And it's like, hey, let's go back. So the cadence accountability, so I can tell I'm right. Like I'm looking at you. Some of you are laughing and some of you are looking down. You're like, I don't want to be, I'm watching. I can see what's going on in the room. So the cadence of accountability was when you walk out of a meeting, hey, this is what we're going to do between today and the next time we meet. So there's actually like, here is the actions we are going to take from this process to move on to the next one. And then when you start the next meeting, you revisit the cadence, if that makes sense. So like, hey, so last time when we met, these are the things that are said to be done. So Suzanne, can you tell me like, what's the follow-up? How did that go? So that there's some action between, because we tend to have meetings and then no action in between. And then we just go back to the meeting and then talk about what we talked about the last meeting, but then nothing's really been done. So I think that's part of it too. I think the other part of it is the strengths-based approach is really kind of focused on, seeing the gifts in people, but not like, this is not going to shock anyone. I have ADHD. I've had it since I was a child. If you ever have seen me speak anywhere, like I'm very fidgety and whatever. And do you know where that plays really well? That plays really well with a group of teachers because they have no attention span. So like a guy who like talked really fast, they love it. So a lot of kids who have ADHD, that is seen as a detriment, but actually if you put it in the right space, it can be a strength. So some of the things that we look at as a negative are actually the person's strength. There's a really fascinating book, it's Malcolm Gladwell. It's regarding David and Goliath. And they talk about David as being the underdog. And that's like kind of it's not a totally true story in the sense that David was very nimble. He was good with a slingshot. So the things that we've seen him as the underdog were actually his strengths. And one of the things they talked about was, like, for example, CEOs, many of them have dyslexia. And the reason why there's a correlation is because if you're dyslexic, you actually develop a really fine attention to detail. So it is kind of seeing like, that's one of the things that we try to do with our staff, really kind of focusing on the strengths, but not seeing everything as a negative. But like, hey, this is, I'm a fidgety person. Where does that actually play really well, right? I'll never forget, there was a student, I'll tell you a principal story. You'll all appreciate this one because you'll kind of get my leadership style. There's a kid he was in middle school, and I'm very, like, discipline was my jam. I loved having kids that were getting in trouble in my office. Like I did it as assistant principal because I'm really good at it. Because I was a horrible kid. So it was like, nothing you have done is as bad as what I used to do. So this kid, he's probably, I think he was in grade 7, maybe, when I left. He could find your biggest weakness, and he would he would make teachers cry all the time. He was so manipulative, and he would find your weakness and just prey on you. And it was like fascinating how intelligent you have to be able to do that. So one day a teacher came in to me. She said, he is driving me nuts. Like I need some help. I need some support. Like, I cannot have him in class right now. And she was almost in tears. So he came to my class, he came to my office, and I had a table set up. And I said, hey, just sit down. I got to knock off some work. So he sits down and he has his homework. I said, do you mind if I play a little music? And he's like, yeah, no problem. So I actually went onto YouTube and I found polka music and I played it, and it was the worst music of all time. And it was so annoying. And he's like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, you don't like polka? And then I actually turned it up and started clapping to it and just started annoying him. He's like, turn it off. I'm like, no. And I just kept turning it up. And then he was like, this sucks. I hate this. And then I turned it off. I said, do you know that you are polka music to every single teacher in that class? Like, that's you. What I just did to you is what you do to everybody. So if I have this issue with you again, you will be back in my office, and it's going to be a polka party every single day. And the kid never actually caused an issue again because I knew sometimes you have to throw it back at the kid. I know this is probably not the best principal advice, but you have to I couldn't do that with 99 of the other kids, but that kid, because I knew them so well, I'm like, this kid, you cannot you can't be nice to him. You have to kind of give it back to him because it's the only thing he respects. And that's what he appreciates. And the reason I tell you this, do you know what that kid is now? He's a lawyer because he knows how to read people. And it's probably, I don't know if it's a terrible thing, but he just knows how to read emotions. He knows how to read people. And that was actually part of it too. I mentored the kid saying you actually have a gift here, but we do not want you using it for evil. We want you using it for good. So how you can read people is actually something that's really, really beneficial. And do you know how I know you hate polka? Because I can read you. So that's something I've learned too. And so I think that's part of it too. I don't even remember what your question is. I'm sorry I had to tell that story, but I just do love that question. So going back to your original question, I think part of it is making sure there's action between those meetings, right? And it doesn't always have to be you. And you have to be comfortable with the action not being the action you want if you're hands off, but really kind of looking at those strengths and also not just negating weaknesses, because sometimes the thing we see as the weakness is the strength, right? I used to get in trouble for talking all the time, and now I speak for a living. So tells you something right there.
Thank you.
Hey, my pleasure. Can we turn the tables? Can I do this? Can I turn the tables on you all? Yeah. What is something, how about this? What is something in the book that you're like, I don't agree with this? Is there anything that you challenge? I'm curious. Did you all say no? Did someone say no? There's gotta be something. Is there anything you're like, I don't know about this? Or, I think there's a reason I asked you this question. I'll tell you more in a second. Is there something you challenge in it? Or hey, I don't know about this. Or I don't know about this one.
Oh,
let's go.
Tim Young, Principal Charles R. Drew Middle School. I don't necessarily have a challenge, but I do want to know more about your thinking on co-creating this vision, this shared vision, and getting the community aspirations. How do you go about doing that? So many times we put out our vision, we put out what we hope to accomplish. So how do I listen to my community to hear their thinking?
Everyone's going to think that you and I worked together on this answer and that this was a setup based on what I'm just going to say. You're going to love this. So what I actually just did is something I do all the time. So when I work with groups and I do a lot of visioning, I was actually just with Texas superintendents and trustees. When I share ideas with them, I actually say, okay, hey, what are your questions? What are your ideas? And where do you want to challenge me? Like, what do you not agree with? So I think as a principal, you have to share some of the vision, some of the hopes that you want to have, but you also want people to push back. Because here, I'm going to say something that is totally true here, okay? And you all know this is true. Every one of you is getting challenged already. You just don't necessarily know it, right? So the challenge could be in the parking lot with your buddies when you're not there. So when you actually invite the challenge in the room, then you're more likely to get it, and it actually softens it many times, right? People aren't going to say like ridiculously mean things about you in the room. They might if they don't give them the space. So I think when you're building that vision, you are actually trying to you're trying to get the pushback so that you can actually maybe back off. I don't want to say back off, but maybe change a little bit of what you're saying to bring in people who might not necessarily 100% agree with you. The whole premise of Forward Together is, how do you get the people who are most likely to disagree with you? How do you get them to move forward? It's because it's easy to get the people who already agree with you. That's the easy part. How do you get the people who disagree with you? And I think it's inviting challenge. There was I'll tell you a story from the book that basically came out of this. I was in there's actually the same event. I do it. It's a different cohort every year, but they invite me back every single year. I was with trustees and superintendents, and I shared, I was talking about like things with AI, technology, some things that we need to embrace. And then I share those ideas. They go on a little break. They have some time for reflection. And then I say what I just said to you. What are your ideas? What are your questions? Where would you like to challenge me? And there's a gentleman in the room who stood up and he said, you're talking all this technology stuff. He's an older man. He's a board trustee. And you sound like my grandson, right? Talking about this stuff. I'm like, oh, and so I'm like, hey, okay. I love that you're saying that. We're probably like 10 years apart. I don't think you're my grandson, but can I ask you before we get into this, what is your name, sir? And I'll never forget this. He said, my name is James, but my friends call me Rusty, but you have to call me James. I was like, okay, this guy does not like me. So immediately he's just like saying, I don't like you, right? So we get into it, and I said, tell me like this. He was like, this tech stuff, I think it's making kids dumber. I think it's causing issues, problems. And I said, okay, I have a question for you. Do you think kids are better at technology today than we were at the same age? She's like, of course they are. I said, I'm actually going to disagree with you. And I'll give you an example. James, could you change a tire? And he said, of course I can. I said, and I made a very calculated guess, right? I said, well, think about it this way. I can't change a tire. Like if my tire went flat on my car right now, I would grab my phone and I could probably figure it out, but I'm not going to. I'm calling somebody. All right. I don't know how to do it. I don't want to even try. So if you look at it, a car is a technology. And so something. And if you remember your first iPhone, do you remember the instruction manual? He's like, yeah. I'm like, no, you don't, because there is no instruction manual, right? So it just had buttons and you press them and it told you what to do. So it's not that kids are smarter with technology today. The technology is so much better that we don't even have to think about it. So the kids can actually get dumber if we don't effectively guide them. So I need you to understand this. You have all this experience and wisdom. And if you pull yourself out of this equation, the kids are going to be in trouble. So what I'm asking you is not to say we should be doing all this stuff. I need you to kind of get into the gray with this process. So you can see him changing, right? And through the challenge like that's where because he's going to push back on me somewhere. I invited it. So what's beautiful, he like totally changed his demeanor to me. And him and I had a good conversation, but he sends me an email and he said, I really appreciated how you used challenge to teach, not to beat us down. And I went home and was bragging to my family that I'm better at technology with them all of a sudden. And I changed. And what was the best part? He actually signed the email, Rusty. Yeah, I was like his friend all of a sudden. And so the big takeaway from that, and kind of connected to your question, is a lot of people say you need to share your story, right? And that's a great thing. But that's only part of it. who's creating the story? All of a sudden, Rusty is actually part of the creation, and he sees himself as a main character of the story. That would have not happened if I didn't say, hey, push back. Like, tell me where I'm off. Tell me where I'm wrong. And I think that's where you start getting some of your community in, because they're gonna push back on you somewhere. I'd rather it be in the room than on Facebook or somewhere else. And so he goes out, this is the best part of it. Everyone that knows Rusty knows before that weekend, he is probably the biggest anti-technology guy. Then he leaves and goes, oh, I went to the session. It totally changed my mind. And they're like, Rusty changed his mind? Holy cow. So now the person who would have walked out of there, who would have been the biggest adversary against what I was talking about, actually all of a sudden became my advocate, because his fingerprints are on the story. And that's when you ask people to push back on some of your ideas. I hope that helps something. At least I like telling that story. So hopefully that's a totally true story too. And that was, it was pretty amazing. I actually put his email in my new book too, with his permission. Is pretty proud of it.
I appreciate that. You know, the technology example you gave comes up sometimes with parents in particular. And, you know, what I'm facing now here recently, I'm glad I didn't hear this directly, because the expression on my face would have been so sour.
Yeah.
But my assistant principal let me know that we had a parent to challenge small group instruction.
Yeah.
And she was not in favor of it. And she said the only reason that we're doing it and so high on it is because we're all about the state tests.
Right.
That's, you know, we're all about the score, the data.
Yep.
And I didn't respond to that, but that was presented.
And I think, you know, to me, there's a really great quote. I can't remember. I know I shared it in Forward Together. It's from Bill Simmons. He's a sports guy. And he said the biggest muscle in the world are internet muscles. So a lot of times people will talk really horrible things online, or behind your back, but they'll never say it to you. I would even say, like, hey, I would love to talk to you about this. Like, what are some of your concerns? Like, tell me about this. Cause we really want to build something together as a community, and just give that person, because, you know, I think, and it's like, hey, like, I actually hear that. And hey, like, cause one of the things that I'm very important, I would never go into any school and say, don't worry about the test. Cause you still have tests. You still have standardized tests. That's reality. So, hey, yes, like even saying like, hey, I know you have a concern, but that is one element of how we're measured. But here's the other reasons we do this that are really beneficial. So it is like hearing that and working backwards from their concern. Don't try to convince people of your idea. Just listen to them and work backwards from there, if that makes sense. Because a lot of times we're trying to convince someone who is never willing to be convinced, but when they're heard, they're more likely to, like, you can kind of like, hey, where do we actually agree? Where, like, what is some of that too, right? One of my biggest leadership takeaways, and I know this is totally not happening right now, I like to, when I feel a concern, I just ask. I don't start trying to convince anybody. I just start figuring out what is going on with this person, what is happening, and it's like work backwards. So if someone's so resistant to trying something new, I like say, like, hey, like, try to convince me why should we stay where we're at? Tell me that. Like, I want to know. And sincerely, I want to know, and maybe I'm wrong. And then you start hearing things. You're like, oh, I totally get that. That makes a lot of sense. And then they feel validated. It's don't spend time trying to convince someone without asking them and trying to get their input first, and then moving backwards from there. Because I would, you know, right away I would just go to that person and say, like, hey, heads up, I heard this. Tell me more. Like, we want to make sure we're doing the right thing, and, you know, I'd love your input on that. What do you think? And I'll tell you, a lot of people, once you ask them, they kind of, their tone goes down a little bit too. There's someone I saw and said, when someone insults you, one of the best things to do, hey, can you repeat? I never heard what you said. And then typically they don't do it again. It's like actually like a fascinating thing. It's like when you actually ask someone when they're saying something nasty, you're like, can you say that nasty thing again? They're like, nah, I don't want to say it twice. Right? It is kind of an interesting thing. Okay, I got time for one more. Is that okay? And thanks for asking the question. Thank you.
My name is Cynthia. I am the principal of Childersburg Middle School.
How you doing
And
today?
I'm good. I think the camera's like pointed directly at me. So
It is. I love it. I can see you.
Well, of all the pillars, which is relationship,
Yep.
empowerment, communication, and all the things, which one do you feel is the most neglected in the schools?
It's resource maximizer by far. 100%. It is resource maximizer is the thing. And it is actually because we hear things like this. We don't need managers, we need leaders. That's like a little cliche hearing you'll say, and you actually are also, I hate to tell you this, you are managers too. You are not, and by no offense to any of you, being an administrator doesn't make you by default a leader. Having influence on moving people forward is what makes you a leader, right? So an administrator is a title, leadership is an influence. So when you actually have, you need to be both a leader and a manager. So you might have this really compelling vision of where you want to go. And then do you actually put the resources in the hands to make that vision a fruition? So I'll give you an example of I won't say the state, but I was listening to, right before I spoke to a district, they brought in I don't know what it's called, the Secretary of Education for the state. I think you have Secretary of Education. Is that a role in your state? Whatever, you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, it wasn't federal, it was state level. So the state level basically is saying, I have this vision and this and this and this and this and this and this, right? And they're saying all these really great things. In fact, most of the stuff the gentleman said, I was about to say in my talk. So I'm like, I totally agree with you. So then I talked to him after, because I can, right? I'm from Canada, so I can kind of do whatever I want here. This is beautiful. And so I actually said, hey, I love what you shared. Tell me what you're changing with your accountability system, like with testing, because a lot of the stuff that you hear from like a politician, it sounds good in public, but then none of the measures actually do that. So it's like, what changes? So I'm actually speaking at a data event coming up. And one of the things that I will share with them right away is assessment drives your teaching, not the other way around. So when a place says we teach to the test, well, if all you do is talk about stay testing as an administrator, teachers are going to teach to the test because that's what we're saying is actually valued. So you have to think of different ways to do this. So when you talk about that notion of resource maximizer, it is, what are the things that you are trying to accomplish? How are you putting those resources in the hands of teachers to help build your vision? Because the vision without the resources does not happen. So I think it was Covey, and I referenced in the book. The easiest way to remember this: leadership is about people, management is about things, and you still have to take care of the things. And that's where I think a lot of people, because you can say all the nice things, but how do you put it to fruition? That's why I actually wrote the book Innovate Inside the Box. It's like, hey, we have curriculum, we have limited budgets, and you don't tell people to think outside the box because we work in a box. You have to identify what the box is and then work within those constraints to build your vision. You can't say think outside the box. Even, I know this sounds crazy, even Apple has a budget. It's billions of dollars, but they still have a budget they have to work within. They can't just do whatever. So, they have shareholders, they have this, everything, every place has certain constraints. Within the constraints, what is the magic that you can make happen? Does that help? Does that help you? I know as soon as I answer, you just ran away. You don't even want to listen to me. I see it now. Okay, well, hey, I hope this helped at all. What's up, Susan? What's going on? How you doing?
I'm standing up to you, by the way. Just so I'll make Anna feel better.
That's right.
So thank you for spending time with us this afternoon. And it has been a really awesome book study this year for us. And to have you almost in person today is just been a great experience. So thank you so much. You made all of our learning just really come to life and so relevant in our work. So thank you for that.
Listen, I'm going to tell everybody, if it wasn't for Suzanne, I wouldn't have done it. So Suzanne's just amazing. She just, like when she gets up, I just light up. She's an incredible leader. So you're very blessed to have her there. So I really appreciate y'all. Okay. Thanks so much for reading the book. I know you're super busy, so I really appreciate the time. I really hope it helps.
Yeah, we've already ordered your new book, so
let's go.
That. So thank you. Yeah. We'll be in touch soon. Take care.
All right. Hey, have a wonderful day, everybody. Thanks for being here today. I really appreciate you. Okay, bye, everyone. Bye.